Hello and welcome to Association Transformation. Andrew Chamberlain, Elevated. It's nice to see you.
How you doing?
Elisa Pratt, Brewer Pratt Solutions, your friend across the pond.
Indeed.
Hello.
How you doing? It's hot
I'm
here.
good.
It's hot. It's middle of summer now, I think. We've got our day of summer and it's sapping the energy out of me.
Oh, well, I know you're 6 hours ahead, so it is later in the afternoon. I appreciate that. But you know
Mhm.
what really struck me today, and it was appreciation for you. So take this, take this
Okay.
for what it is. But we've been doing this for 2 years now, and after 50 plus episodes, awards and recognition, Association Transformation marches on, and
Uh-huh.
I'm really proud of what we've done. But I thought today we could kind of, I don't know, embrace our humility and put out a call, if you will, whether it be to our fans in Belgium or our growing listener audience in the United States or Australia or Africa.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what the second half of this year holds, and also reflect back on the 2 years of success we've had podcasting and chatting about everything association.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting when you reflect on 2 years of conversation, because actually as we're chatting, I've got a list up in front of me of all the different conversations we've had. Everything from, culture to net zero to strat planning to mindfulness, the governance. Oh my God, actually, it's an embarrassment of subjects. It really is. But the reality is, yeah, it is interesting when I'm looking at these headings, these sections. I am curious as to how things have changed in 2 years. I'm curious as to think how things have changed in 1 year. And and actually, as we're moving into the second half of 22, people are already talking about 23 in operational terms. In strategic terms, we're talking about 24, 25, 26. Although I think that's a stretch, 26 at the moment. But I don't know about you, but these days I'm just telling people, think about the next 3 years. Don't think
Yeah.
about anything beyond 36 months.
Oh yeah, no.
Too difficult. Sorry about that. My phone just started ringing. No one ever
Someone called
called
you?
me. Someone
You
called
have
me
a
right.
friend?
Someone called me right in the middle of a podcast recording. Didn't they know? My God, sorry about that. Anyway,
How dare
I'm
they?
not going to cut it. I'm not going to bother to splice in this. We're just going to roll.
No, we take pride in the real life. I mean, we are brutally honest, whether it makes us look bad or not. We've always committed to that in terms of podcasting. So
It's
let's
true.
not start editing and polishing now. I mean,
True. Yeah. Yeah.
why,
There's a
why
phrase.
start now?
There's a phrase that comes to mind about polishing, but
Oh, stop. But
so.
you're looking at that list, and anyone who's interested, associationtransformation.org/episodes. You
Mhm.
can go back through the history of all we've covered, all the guests we've welcomed. And I used to just be a podcast fan. I used to just be a consumer of association expertise. And now as a host, now as someone with the responsibility to put new information and new perspective out there, I too am wondering how things have changed. I feel like we have the same topics,
Mm,
but we're approaching them differently, or the voices that we bring to the forefront are different. I
yeah.
mean, is board governance going to go away? No. Is revenue diversification going to go away? No. Is membership engagement going to go away? No. It's how we tackle these things. And I love how we do that. I think our approach is different, but today I thought was an opportunity to reflect and put out that call. I want to hear from new people, and I encourage people to reach out to us, to visit us on LinkedIn or social media, to join us. We don't have all the answers. We don't know all the experts in these spaces, and we'd love to be challenged. We'd love to feature new perspectives. So if anything today, I think is an open call, a casting call, if you will, for new voices in the association space.
But what do we want to talk about? It's all well and good saying, you know what I'm like. If I'm not interested, I'm not going to talk about it. So what is it that what is it? I mean, I've actually got a wish list as we're talking. I've got a wish list of things I want to talk about over the
Well,
coming.
yeah, as do I, but I don't want to pretend that we are the number one experts on those topics or
We
that
don't need,
those are the only topics.
oh, we don't need to pretend. We don't need to pretend. We are.
We don't need, why lie? Why hold it back?
Yeah, why hide behind a bushel? We don't need to pretend. Don't
hide behind a what?
a
Hide behind a
bushel.
what?
A bushel.
Oh, what's a bushel?
Oh, it's like a bush, I suppose. I don't know.
Oh, so
Saying
hide behind a bush.
bushel. Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry. Sorry, just a little just a little translation moment. Sorry. But I'm tired of talking about COVID and events and in-person versus hybrid versus all of that. I think we grew quite tired of that early on.
Yes.
And it's not to say that there aren't still people dealing with that it's not something that we'll continue to deal with as an industry. But that's a topic I think I've had my fill of.
Definitely.
And I know that you're always hungry for governance. I know you. Oh, was that a grimace on your face?
Do you know, I am always hungry for governance. I am, but I don't need, and I don't think our listeners need to talk about the principles of governance. So the principles of governance as leadership are understood. I don't want us to get into the minutiae of compliance and fiduciary responsibilities and blah blah blah. I want to start talking about what are the kind of, in governance terms, what are the salient issues that boards of directors, boards of trustees need to be mindful of, and how. I want case studies on how these boards are embracing it. I had a bit of a robust debate this earlier with a board that I was sitting around the table with. And I was talking about the governance as leadership piece. And I said, we want to be talking about things like artificial intelligence, blockchain, systems thinking. And the guy turned around and he got really up in my face and said, I'm insulted. I'm absolutely insulted. I'm actually, that's what I do for a living. He said, I'm a specialist in blockchain. And I got the guy sat opposite is a specialist in artificial intelligence. And I'm like, all right, okay. But do you apply it in the governance environment? Oh, they don't do that. And I said, well, why are you insulted by what I've just said? I'm not insinuating that you don't know about it. I'm saying you're not doing anything with it in a governance context.
Right. You're not bringing that expertise to this role. Exactly. You're not bringing the best of yourself to your contribution to the organization.
For me, the governance piece is directly linked to the technology piece. I'm desperately want, and I have been chomping at the bit for months to get into more detailed conversation around how associations are utilizing new technologies, capitalizing on emerging technologies. We know how people are using their Twitter accounts and their LinkedIn accounts and their Instagram accounts and everything. We know what they're doing. I want to know something else. What's going on behind the scenes? Because we're about the business of associations as well as the outputs of associations. So what are you doing with your tech that's making life easier for you? It's not just Zoom meetings. It's not just Teams meetings. What are you doing? So, for me, and I think that's very much wrapped up the tech piece is perfectly aligned to both the operational realities, it's aligned to the membership experience, and it aligns with the governance function as well. And for me, the more we can start talking about technology over the coming months and the year, and I mean the coming months and year, I don't mean years ahead, because actually I want to be talking about different technologies in years ahead. So for me, that's a massive emphasis for us over the next 6-12 months.
Well, when we talk about, and you mentioned it, making the business of associations easier, making our lives easier. I think that operational sophistication, that operational and technology evolution that is out there and available to everyone. I think irrespective of your budget, there's technology solutions available at all sizes.
Yeah.
But I think that's really the key to staff retention and staff happiness and staff balance. Are we doing this for our members? Of course. But in the current environment, I need to retain my staff. I need to hire the best staff. I dabble a little in executive search for associations and trade associations that I'm highly familiar with. And these last two searches have been very, very interesting, being conducted during this process. And the questions that I get from candidates about the infrastructure of the organization, the systems that they have in place. Of course, there's the questions about flexibility and work-life balance, and candidates definitely feel that they're in the driver's seat, and they are.
Yeah, they are.
But technology is the key to so many locks, so many doors, and I think a large one of those isn't just engagement and the transactional relationship with members. I think it's about how our staff, how the association does its work.
Yeah, definitely.
And trying to manage the old systems and new systems is the worst possible spot to be in.
It's a transitional purgatory. It really is, trying to, and often, and isn't that just one of our, I would say guilty pleasure, but maybe that's the wrong phrase, but certainly trying to be everything to everybody all the time, responding to every single demand, expectation, question, suggestion.
Losing battle.
Yeah, but it's a habit that we really as an industry need to break, because it means we're not being efficient. And again, with that business of running running associations, you've heard me say many, many times, and clients have heard me say, yes, we are not for profit, but we are also not for loss. And it's really interesting because earlier this week, I was chatting with a guy, it was yesterday actually, I was chatting with a guy, and we were talking about, I need to see more of a commercial corporate outlook, particularly at leadership level within membership organizations, recognizing that it is a highly competitive market. It is a highly diverse and continually diverging market. I mean, every specialism under the sun has got its own little network growing up, and competing with the parent network, etc., etc. So we need to be far more mindful of how we position ourselves in a competitive and arguably a commercially competitive environment, and that is much broader than marketing, and it's much broader than communications. But I think often the two are sadly equated with one another. Business development, well, that equals making sure people know that we're value for money. And it's like, that's not what it's about at all, so that's another area I want to get into, want to start exploring as well, that kind of commercial acumen, business acumen, that needs to underpin the leadership, the strategic development of the organization.
But I'm so tired of nonprofits having this automatic cloud over them, and at the same time maybe this excuse, we're nonprofits, so we're slower, we don't adopt change as quickly, we aren't focused on the bottom line, all these excuses that people impose upon them and that they use to their benefit when appropriate, and that this for-profit model, this corporate model, is the automatic right way to go, or that it's so different. I worked with a board this week, and they were hungry for metrics. They were hungry to define success. And in that sense, was it a corporate approach? I guess, but it's a commonsensical approach. It's a data-driven approach. And that's not just the jurisdiction of for-profit organizations. And I'm so tired of this designation that business done the right way is for-profit or is corporate. There doesn't need to be a distinction. Doing it right, doing it through metrics, doing it with the end user in mind. I approach it from more of a lean philosophy. If it doesn't derive value for your end user, whether that's a member, a donor, a board member, whomever, then it's waste and it needs to be eliminated. We've talked about strategic elimination, strategic abandonment. That's not a corporate or for-profit philosophy.
But I think the waste issue, I think it's the waste piece that is what differentiates the two. I agree with you, by the way, but you do have to have an analogy for nonprofit boards to sort of understand, and you do have to give them something to benchmark their performance against broader than the non-profit membership industry. You need them to look at other areas. I think the key part of it is the waste. I think it is, and this goes back to something we spoke about. God, I mean, I think it was our first podcast actually.
Was it?
Leveraging purposeful abandonment. When you were talking about, the sacred cows, and I think corporates, for profits, are always mindful, or for the majority of the successful ones, are mindful of eliminating waste, cutting the dead weight, and being flexible and agile. But I think it's one of the headaches again that we've got is this still 2 years on from us recording that podcast. There's still this massive reluctance to cull, the sacred cows, and that it's that waste that is, I think, what differentiates between the two.
And it's worse than ever. I would argue it's worse than ever, because as we made advances during COVID, as COVID gave us an excuse to change and to do differently, we now are in a position where we've returned some of the old methods, the old platforms, the old ways, and we're maintaining those adaptations that we adopted during COVID. And now we're having to do both. I think hybrid is a trap. And whether it's hybrid events, it's hybrid engagement, it's hybrid means doing everything at the same time in every format for every person.
Which is fine if you've got a staff of 3,000
right.
Get it all out the door.
With some pretense that you're able to do them all equally.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I think it's worse than ever. And an audit, a culling, a pruning of the garden is more necessary coming out of this pandemic era than it was even before. Because we didn't get rid of things necessarily during COVID. We put them aside. And then we adopted new, we patched, we bridged, we pivoted. And now we have all of these things in the mix, both the pre-COVID and the post-COVID, and our inventory, our network, our web is messier than ever.
I would absolutely concur. There is this. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but actually, when I reflect on the conversations I'm having with people and seeing the way some of the annual meetings are being put out the door, or the way some of the AGMs are happening, or the way some of the education programs are happening, I am looking at them thinking there's an aura around them. It's not panic, but it's not certainty. It's not, because you're right. You got a boot in each camp almost. It's like, we want to hedge our bets, and
they're so afraid to say no to anyone. If there's any for-profit or corporate principle that I want to embrace, it's the power of saying no. No, that's not our market. No, that's not our space. No, we don't have the bandwidth for that. We don't have the margin or the available resources for that. No. I mean, there's a power in saying no and telling your audience that you can't do and be everything. I would love to see this second half of the year in 2023 be dedicated to the audit, to the pruning, to the saying of no, to a commitment to doing fewer things better, and not just the things you did before or just the new things you're doing now, but the right things. And that may be a mix. But I know I have to tell clients no when they want to do a hybrid and we're supposed to have a board retreat and 18 of the board members are going to be in person and 2 want to Zoom in. I mean, I have to put my foot down and say no, because I can't possibly give those 2 people remoting in an equitable experience.
No.
So, and if I have to be the bad guy, I have to be the bad guy, but it's about setting expectations and then delivering in those areas that are your core channels, your core values.
It's interesting when you said that. I suddenly thought it's that piece on equitable experience. Now I understand it from our perspectives, where in terms of our businesses, we obviously want to make sure the client in its entirety, values the experience. And usually it is about having, a group of people around the one table or whatever. But, well, that's not true, not always, but something. But that equitable experience, is that hindering our industry? Is it hindering the membership world because we feel that
Yes.
everybody who's paying the same dollar therefore has to have the same experience?
Yes.
Is that hindering
Which
us?
sets us up to be what I consider an inch deep and a mile wide,
Yeah.
trying to serve
Yeah.
everyone a little and equitably, instead of being able to dive deep and give more sincere and specialized value to certain segments, because we can't give it to everyone. Because we can't give it to everyone, we hold back and we only do what we can do for everyone.
That's spot on. That's spot on. You're right. How often have we seen it where the people say, "Oh, well, only only a small chunk or only 20% of the members will benefit from this. Therefore, we can't spend." Oh, that saying that I hate. We can't spend members' money. It's not members' money. Don't get me started on that one. But yeah, no.
All right. So we have a few more podcast topics that we've identified here. So I see the second half of the year coming out.
It's like association therapy. This, I love it.
We were just going to do kind of a mid-year check-in, a mid-year overview, and a solicitation, a call for new ideas. I mean, we've generated a pretty good list here. And I'm excited about getting deeper into a few of these with you.
But I think what we've demonstrated is that as leadership teams, chief execs, their leadership teams and their boards of directors, these are exactly the conversations that they need to be exploring.
Yeah.
If we're sat here talking about it, they need to be sat talking about it as well.
Yeah. I agree. And I hope that these conversations in this podcast, it's what we always wanted association transformation to be. And that was a petri dish, an experimental conversation around a
disease-ridden dish of terror. Yeah.
A testing site for conversations in the association space. And we thank everyone who's been with us for these 2 years. And we hope you'll join us for the next years and the next episodes that are still to come. There's lots of conversations to be had. Andrew Chamberlain with Elevated and Elisa Pratt with Brewer Pratt Solutions. We continue to be your instigators, your Sherpas, as I said in a previous episode. Oh, you hate that. You hate that. I used that the other day with the group. I'm like, I'm your Sherpa through the treacherous terrain of association management. You didn't like that?
Do you know, I was talking to someone the other day and they were talking about higher education and they said, oh, higher education industry, it's like an oil tanker. Turning the oil tanker, it's just getting change happening, takes eternity. How would you describe the association world? And I said, well, if you take that analogy, we're like a pleasure cruise. We don't really care what the destination is. We're just having a party until we get there. And that's sometimes how I feel, rather than Sherpa, the dangerous press.
So I'm a Sherpa and you're a party cruise. Is that what you're saying? Maybe that's all you need to know about our different approaches in our relationship. But again, associationtransformation.org/episodes. Follow, check out the 50 plus that we've put out into the world. I'm really proud of what we've done. I'm excited about what's to come. And I encourage everyone to make us a favorite. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. So check us out and let us know if you have any ideas, if you have any topics you want to be a guest. Otherwise, put your members and your mission first.